Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for the testimony and your service. Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you for mentioning the spousal working conditions improving. I'm very proud that my spouse Licensing Relief Act was signed into law by the President in January under the VA bill. As I visited multiple commands from COCOM down to platoon commander, I'm not sure that the troops yet fully understand that this spouse licensing reciprocity is available to them, and it is the current law of the land. So I recommend we get a DoD-wide way to message that spouses can cross-deck their professional licenses, doctors, lawyers, real estate agents, across state lines when they're active duty and on orders. I don't think it's being fully absorbed and utilized yet. On the pay raise, I personally do not believe that 5.2% pay raise is enough, especially for our junior enlisted troops. To put things in context, the average E1, E2 are making roughly $22,000 a year, and in fact, it's not until you're an E4 over 5 years that you're making the equivalent of what would be a $15 per hour wage if it was normalized for a 40-hour work week, which means that effectively the bottom third of our ranks are making less than fast food workers are in many of our states, and some of our states are very high cost of living. Given the recruitment and retention challenges that we have, I think we have a collective action here between this committee, Armed Services Committee, as well as in the Senate and DOD to look at how we can maybe not take a one-size-fits-all pay adjustment of 5.2% and get our junior enlisted specifically above that $32,000 a year number, which is the equivalent of $15 per hour. I think there's ways to do that without impacting the top line budgets, whether it's harvesting from the flag officer ranks that 1% goes a lot further for a flag officer than our junior enlisted. And so I look forward to those conversations, but I think that's a critical element to the quality of life, especially from a recruitment perspective. The gap between DOD and civilian counterparts is at an historic high when it comes to salaries right now, especially for the junior enlisted. Mr. Secretary, are you aware of the strike fighter shortfall that we have DOD-wide, but specifically within the Navy, the challenges that we have from a number of aircraft per air wing and per aircraft carrier?
What I do know is that CNO and the Chief of the Air Force continue to invest in fighter capability, and again, it's going to take a couple of or several years before we get up to what they believe is
yeah, that's right,
meets their full capacity.
Yeah, I understand there's some projections where we're literally 2 air wings short relative to the number of aircraft carriers within the Navy side. And I'm sure you're aware, this committee, as well as our counterparts in the Senate, in FY22 added 12 Super Hornets to the budget, and then in FY23 added 8 Super Hornets to the budget. I wasn't sure if you're aware, but those jets have yet to be actually awarded to the prime contractor, and they are actively shutting down not just their production line, but their entire supply chain. I'm a big proponent of F-35. A large portion of that aircraft is made in my district. I believe we need capacity as well as the capability, and I think right now we are losing as a nation one of the critical tools to closing that strike fighter gap in the form of the Super Hornet production line. The lawyers are battling it out right now. This is one of those things that, watching it from my perspective, I'm calling balls and strikes. I think the government is overreaching. They're asking for intellectual property from the contractor that is different from tech data packages designed for basic sustainment and repair. I think we are overreaching, and this is one of the things that I think is going to impact the customer being the warfighter and the taxpayer in the form of 20 jets not being put on contract. And so I would encourage you to look into that. The Navy is actively working this with the prime contractor right now. But I think we need some supervision here and just get the lawyers in the room to put a kibosh on this, get a negotiated settlement, and figure out some other means to get that intellectual property. And so I'll end with the question, General Milley. You worked in both administrations. You were very familiar with the conditional withdrawal elements of the Afghanistan situation under both administrations. Do you agree with the assertion that was made earlier in this room that that the debacle, the State Department-led debacle out of Afghanistan and the travesty of Abbey Gate, the devastation, the loss of 13 personnel, was the fault of the previous administration?
I'm not going to characterize fault or point fingers. I think, as we all know, that the end state was a strategic withdrawal, and when the enemy occupies the capital of the nation that you supported, that's a strategic failure. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned. All of us are learning those lessons. Both Secretary Austin and I have served many years in Afghanistan. I'm deeply personally invested in it and psychologically invested in it. And I can think of no greater tragedy than what happened at Abbey Gate. And I have yet to fully reconcile myself to that entire affair. So I don't want to point fingers or anything. What happened in Afghanistan did not happen in the last 19 days or even the last 19 months. That was a 20-year war. There were decisions made all along the way, which culminated in what the outcome was. And there's many, many lessons to be learned. And I think we're just at the beginning of that lessons learned process, not at the end.
Well said. Thank you for your service.
If I could, I'd like to thank you, though, personally, on behalf of my wife, really. She's pushed that licensure amendment significantly for years, she and many others. And you and the President and members of Congress brought that home. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, General. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.